technology enabling the creativity, for you don't have limits to your creativity, right?
This isn't going to be necessarily a smooth ride.
We're democratizing, or we may be opening up new avenues of creation that we haven't even figured out yet.
But one thing that, I just say to filmmakers, just be aware of settling for just good enough.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your interest in this new technology, what we're doing with it. I just want to introduce myself and our panelists. I'm Leland Krane. I'm the president, CEO, and co-founder of ShotKraft. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. We have Danielo Garcia from VH to my right. We have CJ Fernandez from Luma AI. And we have Joe, is it Lazer or Lazer, from the Storytelling Edge and Pepper. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my tool, what we do with AI, and then I'm going to pass the mic and each of our panelists will give you a short introduction. So ShotKraft is a creative filmmaker's assistant. It helps filmmakers turn their script into a filmed story, a visual story. A lot of filmmakers start out with the script and they have a camera, but they're not exactly sure how to get from script to finished product. And that's where a shot list comes in. Our tool takes a script, it outputs a shot list using AI, and gives you something that's about 80 to 90% ready to shoot. And then you have to put in your own parameters in terms of how to adjust it, whether you want to change the shot, what order you want to shoot them in. And very soon, within the next week or so, or maybe two, we're going to be adding an image generation also. Without any more delay, let me introduce you to Danielo from B&H Studio Division, and he'll tell you a little bit about what that is.
Thank you, Leland. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Yes, my name is Danielo Garcia. I am a senior sales engineer at the studio B&H. You may know B&H as the camera store on 9th Avenue and 33rd, 34th. What a lot of you may or may not know, it is the studio B&H division. It's a division within B&H where we cater to the broadcast, the filmmakers, the production company, post-production companies. So instead of selling just the box or just one product, we sell the solutions. So our customers come to us and they tell us, this is what I want to do, help me get there. And we come into the picture where there is just putting together the package. Could be a camera, could be editing solutions, virtual production, or for a corporate environment, we get into system integration, so all kind of different customers, whether it's your traditional production companies of broadcasters or is corporate houses or org sales division looking to bring production in-house. We help them get there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm CJ Fernandez. I'm from Luma AI, the company based in Palo Alto, California, Silicon Valley. Founded back in 2021, we started as a 3D company based on the Nerf concept and shift to generative AI. Now we have two models, so we're a multimodal company of Gen AI. One model is the image model named Photon. The other one is a video model named Ray. So in Luma, you can generate images from text, you can generate videos from text, you can generate videos from image, and this week we will be able to generate videos from videos as well.
Hey, I'm Joe. I'm mostly here for the free B&H swag. I am the CMO of a content technology company called Pepper. Basically, we combine top freelancers with AI to help companies scale content creation. I've been in the content space for a long time. I started my career as a journalist, started a news site at a college. After I sold that, I was one of the first employees at a company called Contemptly that connected a network of 200,000 journalists with brands to create great content, tell great stories. Writer by origin, I wrote a book called The Storytelling Edge about the art and science of business storytelling. Working on another one right now about storytelling in the AI age. And I write a pretty popular newsletter every week about intersection of storytelling and AI. So very excited to geek out about this with you guys because this is something that I obsess over a little bit too much, and it'll sort of be like therapy, I hope, you know.
Cool. Yeah, I've been having a lot of conversations with potential investors about how storytelling is really the gem in video. And I think that all of us being here is evidence to that we're all interested in telling stories. So let's start with Danielo. Keep in mind, we're going about like 4 or 5 minutes for this group of questions. So first of all, how is AI currently used in cameras in production that are sold today? And let me start with just that question for you.
Sure. So if we start out with, let's say, the camera portion of it. I think that the manufacturers, your traditional camera makers, are just kind of getting their hands on how to deal with AR, the AI, and how quickly it's moving. There are some technologies that are being brought into to more on the BTZ and robotic camera, where AI can really help track subjects, facial recognition, track an environment, listen to audio cues to follow, and those solutions are really interesting for, in particular, for the educational market, where, let's say, a professor, basically every institution is bringing some form of video to their classrooms, whether it is they're streaming or whether it's they're recording to then make it available on demand. So systems that can allow them to facilitate and automate that production are hugely beneficial. On that, going with that workflow, then on the switching side, you have solutions that they could take also advantage of AI and that tracking technology to be able to live switch between different cameras, right? Then on the film production side, the, let's say, filmmaking side of the world, a huge demand in virtual production. We're all seen, or most of them may have seen, those large LED volumes from the Mandalorian, right? Where you can it is more affordable because the technology now is available to be able to do virtual production with these LED walls, these LED volumes. So huge demand there, and the budgets are coming down, and the solutions are becoming more and more available, which is a huge bonus, right? So it starts out at the top of the pyramid with Hollywood, and then it makes its way all the way down to all the different structure and film schools and the corporate environment. So those servers that drive those volumes, camera tracking to be able to do parallaxing to sell that solution. So then AI is being introduced in that kind of virtual production stack, if you will, where you are bringing post production to onset, and you're doing in camera VFX. So, for example, a company like Kubrick that is able to generate your plates with AI prompts and give you take a 2D image and translate it into a 2.5 to give you layers. So then that way, when that camera moves and then the tracking is reading positioning, is then selling you the effect because the background is also moving, right? Lighting is also taking advantage of that because the servers can now map a portion of your image canvas that's going to the set, to the background, to the image itself, and you're selling that effect. So all those things, the parallax, the tracking, the lighting, those are all things that are kind of bringing into the picture. So those are some of the ways that AI is being introduced in the production pipeline.
Here, let me just.
And post production as well, facilitating editorial side of things.
Yeah. So I mean, and it sounds like it's just scratching the surface in terms of hardware right now. It's just at its infancy. So let's move to CJ. So I'm gonna ask you sort of two questions. You can kind of you told us a little bit about Luma. You can tell us a little bit more about how it got going. Well, you have also told us that it's started as a 3D company, but what sort of people are using Luma, and how
is it expanding creativity for filmmakers and content creators? How is it? Our topic is democratization. So tell us a little bit about how that fits into Luma's world.
Cool. This is a loaded question. But it's a two-part question, right? So the first one, who's using Luma? Luma is still the second app that reached the 1 million users faster. We only lose for threads. And that happened last year in June when we released our first model only on iOS. So now Luma has 50 million users worldwide. A lot of people using our tool. And we have creators, we have agencies, we have filmmakers, we have VFX studios, we have brands. We're pretty much touching everything and everyone in this market, because nowadays everyone needs has a need to generate images and to generate videos, right? So that's pretty much all we do, from individual creators to big studios to big brands. With a high demand of social media, for instance, right? You need to produce. The attention span is really short nowadays, so the speed is really important in terms of putting content and quality content out. The second question,
Second question is about how is it democratizing filmmaking and content creation for people?
oh my gosh, yeah, this is AI as a total. Luma is a part of it. So I believe that these platforms are really enabling creativity in a way that we have never seen up until this moment. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next year, and the next 5 years, and the next 10 years. Because let's talk about filmmaking, for instance. With Luma, you can create a video out of a text prompt, or this week we will be able to repurpose a video that you already have to something completely different. I can film all of us here, and then I can change us to ancient Rome in 5 seconds. Or I can change us all to ancient Rome and change every one of us in a new character in ancient Rome. And then if I don't like the clothes that you're using, I can change that. Why I'm telling you that? Because you can do that really fast. You can do that with quality, and it can enable a person like me. I never imagined that I would be able to put my ideas out in the world, because I didn't have the resources, right? I didn't have money to buy an amazing camera. I didn't have the skills or the ability to get a camera and then to learn with the camera. So now I can do that. So we are talking about not only democratizing for people that didn't even imagine they have these skills, but also that for the people and the professionals, they are part of the process. But I give an example. You have a color grader, and the color grader is working in the color grading for 30 years. Maybe now the color grader can come to the beginning of the creative process, right? Because he has the ability to be an amazing director and be part of the ideation. So he opens space and makes the process, from my point of view at least, less industrialized, so all of people, all the chain will be involved in all the parts of the creation that they want to be involved. They now have the resources to do that. So I believe that the democratizing, giving access, not to equipments, not to technology, but the technology enabling the creativity, for you don't have limits to your creativity, right? This is the most important thing that I believe that AI is bringing to the market and to the people.
Super. All right, now CJ, let's dive in. I'm sorry, not CJ, the Joe. We're gonna move to Joe now. So Joe, you're a journalist. Let's talk about what you're writing about in terms of content creation and how AI is influencing it. We started out chatting earlier about this, but let's hear your take on how AI is changing content creation as a whole, rather than just filmmaking, but think about content as an entirety.
Sure. So I think there's a number of shifts that we see going on. Certainly, we see a lot more slot being produced on the internet now. I think the sort of cost of creating very average mid content is approaching zero, but in turn, so is the value of that content, right? When it becomes almost infinite. And I think in turn, the value of really good, truly authentic human content that has a core personal story right behind it is increasing in value, because more and more we're seeing people start to get sick of the slop and want to gravitate towards what feels actually emotionally resonant. I agree a lot with every time in terms of virtual production as a democratizing aspect. A couple of years ago, I created a virtual pilot of a TV show that was shot completely in virtual production, right? And the ability to do that and shoot on a budget that was probably 25% of what it would be if we were filming traditionally is huge. But I think it's also worth discussing the fact that this isn't going to be necessarily a smooth ride, right? We talk about all this. We can say like, oh yeah, AI is democratizing everything that we're doing. We can now create things that we couldn't before. Well, there's also going to be a lot of disruption to the jobs that we do have in creative industries as a result.
I think what's interesting, and I heard a speaker talk about the introduction of the drum machine. I think that's a great example of a technology that threatened directly drummers, right? But we don't see less drummers. We don't see less music created. In fact, the drum machine brought in an era of new music, techno. There wouldn't really be techno if it wasn't for the drum machine. So I think we're democratizing, but we may be opening up new avenues of creation that we haven't even figured out yet. And the one thing I wanted to jump in on too is the authenticity. It seems that people, I'm seeing a trend, and we can talk about what trends we're seeing, but in people being really interested in authentic content, authentic stories, real stories that are emotional, as you're saying, and less impressed with production value. Because we know when we go to the movie theater, we're going to see that big carnival ride. But telling the true stories, that's the personal sort of connection we want to get out of the content. So let me come back to Danielo. Tipping off on this idea of the creators being kind of cane right now. Can you tell us a little bit about the creator division of B&H and how that's grown? Because I know that you have the Build Expo coming up, and it's all about creators. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but this is the 17th and 18th at the Javits Center. There's a huge expo that B&H is. I don't know if you're the sponsor of it, but yeah, it's a sponsor.
It's a B&A show.
It's a B&H show. Yeah, and it's all about content as well as cameras. So tell us a little bit about creator division.
Sure. So the B&H has always aimed to foster communities. So whether it was the community of the photographers holding events, shooting trips, that kind of stuff. The same thing with videographers. So the creator community is just an extension of that, just catering to that community to foster, to get equipment, on their hands, to test out things, and they generate content with that equipment and give feedback. B&H and particularly the studio as well. We're always listening to the customers and looking to see what they want to do, and what challenges they're facing, what other pain points, and then we talk to the manufacturer, based on our position, and we are able to give feedback. They're like, well, what are you working on in terms of like new cameras, new technology, and then we help kind of bridge that gap. So I think the community, the creator community, is an extension of that, and it's mostly a digital platform, but there's also, we highlight creators and get equipment on their hands, and now we build. Where it's a way to bring them together and create a platform, and different manufacturers showcasing their technology or booths. So in a way, it's almost like an NAB, if you're familiar with that. But here in New York, because NAB takes place in Vegas, and catering to a lot of that creator and other professionals. So that, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. And the one thing I wanted to also dovetail here to ask, because everyone's concerned about, will AI, generative AI particularly, take away jobs from filmmakers? Do you see a downturn in camera purchases at B&H?
Well, I think the industry is getting hit by multiple angles, AI being one of them. The strikes have impacted sales and rental. We talked to our rental houses; they see those numbers go down. Also, production is going overseas. Those are all, that's also affecting the market. There's going to be right now, or AI is going to affect everything. So the film industry, it's not going to be an exception. I think that having been in this industry long enough to have seen the migration from analog to digital, from standard definition to high definition to 4K to HDR, there's always something new that's coming into our industry that shake things up, and the camera offerings are going to be affected and shaken up by that. I think now we're AI primarily, I see it affecting for example, when the iPhone was introduced, that took away the point and shoot and the consumer or prosumer cameras, right? Nobody buys a home camcorder anymore. Why? Because you have your phone. So with AI right now, it's affecting the market that would normally you buy, for let's say B-roll, your backplates, your drones, right? Because now if you could generate that footage with AI, as opposed to flying a drone and putting yourself in peril, that could help, eliminate some of those pain points. So AI is going to affect that market as well. And in the top end of the chain, there, as productions are, as filmmakers, especially the independent filmmakers and the film students move to tinker with AI, they may not buy as much equipment at the entry level side of things, and that's going to affect the market. But one thing that I just say to filmmakers, just be aware of settling for just good enough. And I think that's something that you brought into the picture, if you will, that don't settle. Oh, I could do it, so it's just good enough. So if it's for ideation, for kind of like storyboarding, yeah. But if it's as a final product, resist that temptation and continue to tinker if you have that capability. Because now you're not under pressure of being on set with limited resources. You're now at home where you could tinker and take longer, and you just keep working at it, I guess.
Right. So this is where we get into the little bit of friction, right? Because E&H is a camera seller, and CJ is making a product that in some ways replaces camera technology. So I'll go to CJ here and ask you. I've seen a shift when we launched ShotKraft. Most people were like, yeah. And now I see everyone teach me, tell me how I can use AI to make things better, because I need to know. Do you see that shift, and how do you address people's concerns about this, losing their ability to control the technology?
That is a great question. And yes, like 6 months ago, when we had these conversations, it was really loaded with fear from all kinds of industries or corners or level of professionals. And today that changed. I've been working with Luma for the past 3 months, right? I went to hundreds of meetings in 3 months, hundreds, literally hundreds, and I I I, I didn't get this feeling or this question or this challenge saying, "Oh, you guys are ruining this market," or it's the approach is different. Like, I would like to learn more about that. I would like to be part of the conversation because I believe that most of people now understand. We all understand that this genie is out of the pot, right? There is no way back. And as you said, Danielo, AI is affecting not only this industry, AI is affecting all industries. So we as a reality is part of life, and we need to know how to deal with it, right? Uh, um, and again, I go back to the democratization point. Now, we need to understand that AI is enabling us to push the boundaries. And I love what you said about the stories, right? The stories are really important. We're just being able to tell them in different ways. I love what you said about the electronic drums, right? They created a new kind of music. I'm a amateur musician. I love electronic drums. I love electronic music, and we didn't know, if you go 60 years to the past, we didn't know that that thing would be possible. So I'm humble enough to understand that maybe there are different types of arts that will appear or that will surge, or someone will create in 10 years from now. And our professions are going to be different, right? I'm really excited about that. And I see the industry. It's also in all, I talk to big studios, I talk to small studios, I talk to VFX company, I talk to grants, I talk to advertising agencies, and they're all nowadays, different from 6 months, they're more excited about it, more accepting the new reality, I guess, and in a more positive way. So there is a shift, there is an important shift.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too is, I'm old enough to have worked in cinema when it was only film, only celluloid, and I worked for a company called Red Camera Shortly for a little while, and I introduced a lot of my fellow cinematographers to the Red camera, and again, it was that I hate it, I don't want to do this, and the reaction wasn't because they hated it. It was the reaction was, I'm behind a firewall right now, that I'm the only person that knows how to do this. The producers don't even know what I'm doing. And when you're in that sort of artificial firewall, it's going to come down at some point. And so you have to be able to change and grow with the technology. So let's go to Joe, and maybe you can just jump in from there in terms of the changes in technology, how that is going to drive us to maybe new things.
Yeah, I think the point you just made is really well put. With every technological change, we do see new mediums of art emerged. When the first camera came out, the daguerreotype, haters in France saw this and said, painting is dead, right? But eventually realized that no, photography becomes a new medium of art, and in turn, painting still has a value. It did kill kind of the old industry, right, of portrait paintings, because you could just do take a photograph instead. But that then pushes the old mediums to innovate in new ways, and you create new art off of it. I think so much of this, conversation that we have around what is art with AI versus slop, we're still figuring out. To me, so much of it comes down to intention and the work that you put into it. When I see someone creating an AI film and they've clearly put hundreds of hours of edits into it, and there's a real resonant story there, I think, okay, this is more artistic, right? This is considered. When I see something that is just straight up slop, I think, oh, this is worthless. So I think that's kind of the weird road that we're navigating right now, and we're trying to figure out what's meaningful versus what's potentially destructive or less meaningful.
Right, and it seems like authenticity is like the key word in this whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's authenticity. I think it's storytelling. I think it is the craft that you bring to the medium. I still struggle myself with the copyright issues of all of this, right? Knowing that these tools are built off the work of other artists and creators without compensation. Like, I know that ChatGPT has ingested my copyrighted work, right? And I haven't seen a cent for it. But to your point, the genie is out of the bottle. So we're in this situation where you can hate all of that, right? You can be mad at AI and be mad at these Silicon Valley overlords for stealing our data and putting it into these models. But it's also kind of a Hunger Games world where, as creators, we need to adjust to this new environment that we're in. And I think there's a Goldilocks zone, right? If you don't use AI at all, you're likely to be left behind just from not automating a lot of the mundane tasks that go into any sort of work. If you use AI for everything, I think you're going to see your creative and communication and critical thinking skills really atrophy. So there's this middle ground of using AI with an incredible amount of intention that I think all of us who use these tools are trying to find, right? How do I maintain the sense of art and purpose and storytelling and craft in what I do without not taking advantage of the possibilities that these tools present to us. And I think it's one of the most mind-blowing and complicated things that, for me as a writer, I've ever had to really grapple with.
Yeah, it's almost like it's challenging your thinking in a way to think a little differently. So I think we're getting short on time here.
And we have a question from the
Shoot from the audience, but me.
Hey, ask a question, just yell it out.
So will filmmaking anywhere be irrelevant, whether it's on a stage or location, if you could just generate the environment? Let me ask CJ that.
Yes and no, depends of what result you gotta get out of it. It will enable you, if you don't have access to ancient Rome, to have that set. But you can combine stuff, right? I believe that the point here is not replacing, is expanding the boundaries. It's making things more accessible. Photoshop didn't kill location. I don't believe that AI will kill location, but bringing AI to the location could do amazing stuff, right? So yes and no, and depend on what you want and what you have access to. So you won't be limited by not having access to it.
And I think as new technologies come out, people tend to like splurge and overdo them. Like I remember when green screen became a little bit easier for people to work with. And I got to tell you, like every other shoot, every shoot for a little while was green screen shoot, and I had no idea why. I was like, you would put a green screen up and then shoot the background that was like right there. We're like, why aren't we just shooting it on the background? It's like, oh, it's easier to control this way. It's like, well, but then people started saying, well, okay, yeah, but that doesn't work for this. Like, like the volume stage is a great example. I don't know if any of you have seen the show, Halo, I think it was. They shot on film, but on a volume stage, because they wanted the control of film to be able to bake in what they were looking for, but they wanted the volume stage to be able to create that otherworldly environment that was there. So, it's interesting how you combine these technologies to come up with something entirely new. Do we have other questions from the audience? We have one in the back there.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Just tell me your question.
Oh yeah, it's so my question is, a year from now, what are your predictions?
Oh, that's a great question. So let's expand that a little bit from the year, and we'll go down the line. What do you see? Let's say the year from now, or 2 to 5 years from now.
I think I'm bad at predicting the future, but I could see what's happening now and the evolution and how the tools are being used. Like you were saying, Leland, that when a technology comes out, we tend to overuse it. That happened. Another example was in the 70s when the zoom lenses come out. Like every shot that would have otherwise been tracking or dolly became a zoom, and they were like, that's not the same thing. It reads differently, so let's get away from it. So I think we're gonna go through this process of we got to get all of this out of our system, AI, the deep fake, the novelty of AI, and then we'll settle in a point where the real shooting of an actor or using their voice, or the two will, you got your thesis and your antithesis, and we'll set it in a synthesis. We'll find a middle ground where the two things kind of like could coexist. There will be project that will be on one extreme or the other, but I think we're just gonna get to the point where the two kind of coexist in a new language or a new workflow gets developed.
Cool. To be brief here, I believe that 1 year from now, we're gonna value the human being and the human talent even more than we value nowadays. Now we are learning how to live with AI. Imagine 1 year from now, I cannot imagine. I cannot give you a prediction what it's going to be. I cannot give you a prediction 5 years from now if you're going to have the AGI in place and how it's going to work in the creative landscape. So I had no idea. I hope for a better future. But again, we're going to have so many resources, so many technical skills, amazing effects in our hands, at least in the industry, that I'm going to value more and more the human being behind that, because stories matter and will matter even more when you democratize the access to effects, After Effects, camera effects, 3D, and so on and so forth. So I believe that we're going to value more and more the human being behind all creations.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years from now, like, fuck me, I cannot make a prediction. I'm already speak. Well, I guess one meta prediction that I have is that I do very much believe that storytelling is going to be the essential super skill of this next age of work. Um, more and more technical skills within work at large is going to be handled by AI, right? And so much of work itself is going to be very relational. Those soft skills like empathy, communication, and collaboration, and vision, and storytelling acts as this core super skill that makes us better at all those surrounding skills. And I think we're going to see a world in which, for a lot of people, let those skills atrophy thanks to AI. They outsource it to AI. They over rely on it. And those of us that invest in those storytelling communication skills, keep the creative spark alive, are going to have an advantage in a lot of ways. So that's the one thing I feel confident about over a 5-year span. In the next year, we're going to see a lot of slop, a lot of bad content. We're going to keep seeing more innovation. With the release of VO3 changed a lot of my priors in the last 2 weeks about what I thought really was possible in AI storytelling. I still find a huge feeling of uncanny valley with a lot of these, close digital twin characters. I'm not sure that's going to go away. But text to dialogue is a huge leap, and it's crazy. It sounds like you guys are working on something similar. So I think we're going to start to see more things that make us question, is this art? Like, is this something really meaningful made from AI versus more, fun little experiments that you see on LinkedIn or YouTube? And, I do think that, not to get this on a negative note, but from a job perspective, in all industries, not just the creative ones, you're going to see a little bit of a wipeout on the lowest level task-based type of work, right? If you just think about your job as, I do this task that an AI can do, you are likely not going to have a lot of career longevity. But if you think of your job at a higher level, a more strategic level in terms of the projects you can lead and orchestrate, the grander stories you can tell, to your point, there's going to be a ton of possibilities. So it's going to be one hell of a ride, one way or another.
Yeah, I think if your job involves a lot of copy and paste, then maybe
I'm looking for something else.
one last question.
And then we have to wrap.
Sure. Have you noticed any sort of like AI aesthetic maybe in like filmmaking right now?
Also a great question. The thing that I was going to say is that, when new technologies come across, there's very often, and especially when they're cheaper to use, you get this sort of low quality, like you're calling it slop. I call it muzak. It's not quite music, but it'll work for an elevator. I think we have rather than that level of content and then like the higher level of content, we sort of have a continuum of like really low end stuff, then somewhere in the middle that does have authenticity, and then high end stuff. But let me get to your question. Let's repeat it one more time. Like what? Say it one more time.
Like, have you noticed like an AI aesthetic?
So is there an aesthetic associated with AI? I can't comment on that because I haven't used it enough personally, but I think that's a good question.
There's like that. And one thing I see is this sort of like Wes Anderson-y aesthetic to a lot of AI tools. That seems to be a really heavy influence in some of the models. You get those very symmetrical shots. That's one trend that I've seen. You probably know way more about this than I do, CJ.
Yeah, it's curious when they say that, because I have conversations with colleagues of mine. I worked for 22 years in advertising agencies, and I spent the last 13 when I pivot to technology. And I had this conversation with my colleagues from the advertising world, and they say there is the aesthetics of how the car industry, how the tires touch the mud. And I said, when did you made up your mind in terms of what that aesthetics is? He said, oh, it was a month ago. I said, oh, everything changed. So it's difficult for now, and I can see some of those aesthetics, but I back with you that tomorrow they change and they're evolving, getting better and better and better. So a prediction from 1 year from now to be perfect, I would say, right? Indistinguishable. I don't know how to say this in English, but we won't be able to distinguish. But again, with a text for sound for words, if you put stupid words and it's a lousy story, you're gonna be able to understand that it was badly done for a person that doesn't know how to handle a technology. It's the same thing that you give up Photoshop for a person that don't know how to operate that. The result will be tragic. So it won't be different with AI. You're gonna see the polish. Exactly. If what you put in, it's what comes out.
And I think if I could just bring it back to like what I know best about cinematography, is that we did see when digital appeared in cinematography, we did see a change in the aesthetic from a more naturalistic and sort of to a more impressionistic look. When we see it just became so much easier to use less light, and we wound up with a lot more options. And I think people really explore and push the boundaries of what's possible when they're given those kind of tools.
Do you have something on this thing about the aesthetics?
Other than just from kind of like just a viewer side of thing, not necessarily making just it, but it's evolving too quickly. So we went from, maybe a year ago, complaining that the fingers were too many or too little, not there, to then that kind of like morphy look from frame to frame to like almost like hairy. And then now in the past 3 or 4 weeks, completely different.
Right. It's almost like too good is the aesthetic. It's like everything is like too perfect.
Everyone's way too hot. She's sexy in a AC. Makes you feel weird. I don't like it.
All right. On that note, I think we're gonna wrap it up, and we will be doing in, let's say, about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll do our raffle, so stick around, enjoy the cocktails, and Sam, you can hit the music.
You're supposed to be on that. All right, thank you very much for coming.